Imagine an aging, rusted oil tanker carrying millions of gallons of volatile crude suddenly vanishing from global tracking systems, only to digitally reappear on the other side of the world while the physical ship secretly loads illicit cargo.
It's basically a mast and 300-ton magic trick, playing out right on the open ocean.
Yeah, exactly. Welcome to this deep dive. Today, we are mapping out the global shadow fleet. We're looking at this vast, interconnected network of illicit vessels using digital deception to evade international sanctions.
And we have a massive stack of intelligence driving the conversation today. I mean, we are pulling from maritime data analytics from Koppler and Planet, a DOJ press release, strategic reports from CSIS and ISIS, and some really intense cyber threat investigations from the Wall Street Journal.
Right, so the mission today is to unpack exactly how this dark maritime network operates, right? We want to look at the astronomical financial risks, the environmental dangers, and how authorities are basically using AI and international law to hunt them down.
Yeah, but before we jump into the mechanics of all that, we really need to put a crucial disclaimer on the table for you.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the sources we're analyzing today contain some highly politically charged content regarding U.S. and Western sanctions against countries like, Russia and Iran. We need to be crystal clear. We're not taking any political sides here.
Right, exactly. We aren't endorsing the viewpoints of the U.S. government, and we aren't endorsing the viewpoints of the sanctioned nations either.
No, not at all. Our job is strictly to act as impartial guides. We just want to convey the facts, the statistics, and the ideas that are actually documented in this intelligence.
We're just looking at the how and the why of this shadow economy.
So let's start with the most obvious question. How do you hide an object the size of the Chrysler Building? I mean, these are some of the largest moving structures on Earth.
Yeah, you can't exactly parallel park a supertanker in a secluded alleyway.
No, definitely not.
So it relies on manipulating a protocol called the Automatic Identification System, or AIS. To understand how they pull this off, you really have to look at how the system was engineered in the first place.
Right, because it was mandated back in 2004.
Yeah.
Right, under international maritime law.
Exactly. It was built purely for collision avoidance. Any major vessel on an international voyage has to continuously broadcast its identity, its real-time GPS position, course, speed, all of that over VHF radio frequencies.
So it's a system built for safety, meaning it has to be universally accessible by other ships and coast guards.
Which is, ironically, its fatal flaw when it comes to security. Because it was designed for total transparency, the protocol is completely unencrypted.
Wow, really? Unencrypted?
Yeah, it's essentially just an open radio broadcast. There's no mathematical authentication verifying that the data a ship is transmitting actually matches its physical reality. And that openness is what allows operators to engage in what the intelligence community calls spoofing.
And we should clarify for you listening, this isn't like a faulty antenna or a ship accidentally sailing into a radar dead zone.
Oh no, spoofing is highly intentional. To execute this, a ship's crew, or even an external operator, intercepts the GPS feed before it ever reaches the AIS transponder.
So they're literally feeding it bad info.
Exactly. They use software-defined radios to feed false coordinate data into the system, and the transponder just dutifully broadcasts that fabricated location to the rest of the world.
Including the satellite networks monitoring global shipping.
Yep.
So looking at the Kepler and CSIS data, there are some wild variations of this tactic. Identity masking is one of them.
Yeah, that's where a sanctioned vessel basically commits maritime identity theft. They broadcast the unique IMO registration numbers of a completely different, totally clean ship.
That's crazy. And then there's jumping, right?
Right. Jumping is when the tracking algorithms suddenly show a massive oil tanker moving across the map at, 400 knots. It creates this physically impossible movement specifically to scramble automated compliance software.
But the hybrid approaches seem to be the most sophisticated one.
Oh, definitely. A vessel will broadcast perfectly legitimate data for the vast majority of its voyage. Anyone watching the screen just sees a standard route through international waters.
Wow.
Right as they enter sanctioned waters, or, get ready for an illicit ship-to-ship transfer, they spoof their location to appear hundreds of miles away.
There's that specific example in the data, the Minerva. It changed its name to Olina and just manipulated its AIS to evade detection.
Yeah, and the Azure Voyager is another crazy one. Over 9 months, this single Aruba-flagged vessel spoofed its signal across 3 different continents.
3 continents.
Yeah. It broadcasted a completely plausible route in the Caribbean while it was physically operating in Southeast Asia.
It's exactly like using a developer tool to fake the GPS location on a smartphone fitness app. Tricking the app into thinking you're running a marathon in Paris while you're actually sitting on your couch.
That is the perfect analogy,
Yeah.
except they're doing it with a vessel carrying tens of millions of dollars of petroleum.
But wait, this brings up a massive contradiction for me. We know companies like Planet use constellations of satellites, taking near-daily optical images of the oceans using AI.
Right.
So if a satellite can literally take a picture of an empty stretch of ocean where a ship claims to be, proving the AI is fake, why do operators even bother spoofing? Why not just turn the transponder off completely?
Well, going completely dark triggers immediate automated alarms.
Oh, so it's too obvious.
Exactly. When a 300-meter tanker just vanishes from the system, every coastal authority and naval patrol instantly knows something illicit is happening. It draws physical Coast Guard vessels right to your last known location.
I see.
Spoofing, on the other hand, provides this veil of plausible deniability. It buys time. And in this market, a few weeks of operational cover translates into astronomical financial gain.
Yeah, let's talk about the financial scale, because the numbers in the CSIS and ISIS reports are staggering. Since the spring of 2022, Russia alone has spent an estimated $10 billion buying up to 650 used vessels.
$10 billion on used ships. And it pays off exponentially. The data shows this shadow fleet generates roughly $87 to $100 billion annually for Russia.
Wow.
It also generates $50 to $56 billion for Iran and about $18 billion for Venezuela. We are looking at a parallel global economy circulating hundreds of billions of dollars.
Outside the jurisdiction of Western banks.
Yeah,
That's
right.
wild. But that brings us back to the Kepler data and the timeline issue.
Uh,
The analytics show that automated algorithms can spot a spoofing anomaly in hours.
right. The AI sees the impossible jump almost instantly.
But the data also says 80.1% of ships caught spoofing are sanctioned within a year. And the majority of those sanctions happen in this weird 3 to 9 month window.
Yeah, it seems slow, doesn't it?
It really does. If the software flags the crime today, why wait 3 to 9 months to drop the sanctions hammer?
Because that window is actually a crucial intelligence gathering phase. When a ship spoofs, authorities don't just want to slap a fine on a disposable shell company, they watch where the ship goes physically.
So they track the whole network.
Exactly. They map the rogue ports, the middlemen, the ultimate buyers of the illicit oil.
Which perfectly explains that recent DOJ civil forfeiture case. The U.S. seized $47 million in Iranian oil proceeds over in Croatia.
Yeah, that case is a textbook example. The facilitators masqueraded nearly 1 million barrels of Iranian oil as Malaysian crude. They spoofed the AIS, used falsified documents, all of it.
And the fatal mistake they made was tricking U.S. financial institutions into paying the storage fees.
Right, they used U.S. dollars. And the moment a transaction clears in dollars, it usually routes through New York. That gives the Department of Justice jurisdiction.
So they spent months linking that specific oil to sanctioned entities to build the legal case for forfeiture.
Yep, they play the long game.
But while authorities take months to gather financial intelligence, the physical reality of these ships is just degrading rapidly, right? They're turning into floating time bombs.
They really are. The average age of the Russian shadow tanker fleet is 18 years.
18 years. That's ancient for a tanker.
It is. They require intense maintenance that they just aren't getting. Plus, they operate without the gold standard Western protection and indemnity insurance.
So if something goes wrong, there's no payout for the cleanup.
None. And things do go wrong. We have real-world fallout, a Russian tanker sinking, another running aground in the Kerch Strait, and one completely breaking down in the Baltic Sea carrying 100,000 tons of oil.
100,000 tons drifting. That is an environmental terror. But the WSJ investigation highlights a totally different nightmare, the cyber threat.
Oh, yeah. This is where it gets terrifying. U.S. Coast Guard Cyber Command has been boarding these ships. Rear Admiral Jason Tama reported finding pirated software, active malware, and even commercial remote desktop apps like TeamViewer and AnyDesk directly wired into critical navigation systems.
Wait, like the same app IT uses to fix my laptop?
Yes, hardwired into the bridge of a massive oil tanker. And the Coast Guard actually caught remote admins trying to wipe data while the inspectors are physically on board.
That is insane. It's like letting a stranger on the internet use a remote control app to drive a dilapidated bomb truck through a crowded tunnel.
That's a very accurate way to put it. Millions of gallons of volatile crude oil require precise atmospheric control in the tanks. You have to displace oxygen with inert gas to prevent explosions.
And someone sitting in a basement halfway across the world has remote access to those systems,
Right. Remote interference could easily trigger a catastrophic explosion or drive the ship into a port.
which totally blurs the line between simple smuggling and, like, intentional state-sponsored sabotage.
It absolutely does. These ships aren't just hauling oil anymore. They are suspected tools of hybrid warfare.
Yeah, the strategic reports outline some wild incidents, like the Finnish seizure of the Eagle S tanker.
Right. That ship was suspected of intentionally dragging its massive anchor across the seafloor to cut the S-Link 2 undersea communications cable.
Plus, there are reports of these shadow vessels carrying electronic intelligence gathering equipment near Western naval bases.
Which forces a massive legal confrontation. How does the West fight back without violating international law?
Specifically UNCLS, right, the law of the sea.
Yeah, under UNCLS, ships have the right to innocent passage through coastal waters. You can't just board them without a verifiable threat.
But legal scholars are pushing to reinterpret that.
Exactly. If a ship is spoofing its location, uninsured, and riddled with malware, coastal states might legally argue that constitutes an immediate threat.
Meaning they could legally board or ban them. And we are seeing legislative action in the U.S. right now to back this up.
Yeah, there are several proposed bills. The Shadow Fleet Sanctions Act, the Ghost Act, and a major push for an Export Enforcement Coordination Center, or E2C2.
The E2C2, that's the big data approach, right?
Right. They want to shift from targeting single ships, which is useless because they just changed their names, to targeting the entire ecosystem, the ports, the maintenance yards, the crewing agencies.
But I want you to consider the sheer complexity of global shipping here. If the UK and the EU start demanding mandatory insurance disclosures in, say, the English Channel and the Baltic Sea, does this actually fix the problem?
Or does it just force the Shadow Fleet into even more dangerous, unregulated waters?
Exactly. And if you squeeze the choke points, they just take riskier routes, increasing the chance of a massive spill.
It's the ultimate game of whack-a-mole.
It really is. So just to briefly recap this journey we've been on, we started with the digital trickery of AI spoofing, right? Moving on to the billion-dollar sanctions evasion.
And then looking at the physical terrors. These malware-infected, uninsured ships threatening global waters and even cutting undersea infrastructure.
It's a lot to wrap your head around, but I want to leave you with a final lingering thought.
What's that?
As AI and satellite imagery make it mathematically impossible for surface ships to hide their true locations, what happens next? Could the shadow fleet of the future abandon the surface entirely?
Wow, like submarines.
Yeah. Think about it, evolving into networks of massive autonomous cargo submersibles that transport illicit oil completely undetected beneath the waves.
That is a terrifying thought experiment, but honestly, given the money involved, it's not impossible.
It's really not. Well, thank you for joining us on this deep dive.
Thanks for having me.
Catch you next time.